The garage was wide open, and right away I knew my husband's car was gone. 20 years of his life just gone overnight. My own son sold it for a trip to Paris with his wife, but a single phone call the next morning changed everything. The man on the line told me he had Richard's car. He said there was something my husband wanted me to know, something he hid before he died. My name's Margaret, and this is how my dead husband saved my life and taught my son and his wife a lesson they will never forget. Before we get into it, please drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe to the Never Too Old channel. We're building a community for people who know our best days can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. The garage door was open. That's the first thing I saw standing there in my kitchen while my coffee went cold in my hands. I just stared at it through the window over the sink. The door was rolled all the way up. The space inside was dark. Even with the sun coming up, Richard never left it open. In 43 years of marriage, he never once left that door open all night. But Richard was gone. It's been 8 months now. I put my coffee down, walked to the back door, and opened it. That spring air hit me. It was warm for April, the kind of morning Richard would have been out there already. Bent over that car with a rag in his hand, I walked across the yard. The grass needed cutting. I kept meaning to call somebody. The concrete felt cold under my slippers. That oil stain in the middle of the garage floor was dark and familiar. 20 years of the same car in the same spot leaves a mark. But the spot was empty now. Just empty. I just stood there looking at nothing. The workbench against the back wall was exactly how Richard had left it. His tools were hanging on the pegboard, each one outlined in black marker so he'd know where it went. His red toolbox was shut on the bench. His work journal was lying open right next to it, pages filled with his small, neat handwriting. The car was gone. My chest got tight. I put my hand on the doorframe to steady myself and just breathed. In through the nose, out through the mouth. 43 years as a nurse, and I was still using the same tricks I taught patients in the ICU. Breathe, think, act. But I couldn't think about anything but that empty space. I walked to the workbench and picked up the journal. The last thing he wrote was dated 3 weeks before Richard died. His handwriting looked tired, the letters weren't as sharp. Almost done. 20 years on this beauty. Can't wait to teach Margaret to drive her right. Our retirement road trip starts next summer. I closed the journal, put it back on the bench exactly where it was. The garage still smelled like him, like motor oil and old leather and that orange hand soap he always used. I could almost see him in here, could almost hear the music he played on that old radio. Classic rock. He'd sing along when he thought I wasn't around. Then a car engine rumbled out on Oakwood Drive. I turned. Jason's black BMW was pulling into my driveway. A lease not bought. He had to tell me that at Christmas, like I was supposed to be impressed. My son got out of the driver's side, 38 years old, and he still won't look me in the eye when he knows he's messed up. Even from clear across the yard I could see it, the way his shoulders were all hunched over, the way he stuffed his hands deep in his pockets. The passenger door opened. Melissa got out. She looked perfect, just like always. Her hair was smooth and dark. She had on designer sunglasses, and her clothes probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She stood next to the car, staring at me in the garage. Even with her sunglasses on, I could feel her eyes on me. Jason walked over to me and stopped at the edge of the driveway. "Mom," he started. I just waited. "I need to talk to you." "Where's the car?" "Jason." His jaw got tight. "That's what I need to talk to you about." "Where is it?" "I sold it." The words just hung there. They didn't make any sense. It was like he was speaking a different language and my brain was trying to catch up. "You what?" "I sold it yesterday." He glanced at the empty garage, then looked down at his feet. "I needed the money. Melissa's been planning this Paris trip for months. It's important for her business contacts. I couldn't let her down." The knot in my chest got tighter. My hands started shaking, so I crossed my arms. "That was your father's car?" "It was just sitting there." His voice got all defensive. "Dad's gone, Mom. You don't even drive it." He said, "was." Past tense. Jason finally looked up at me. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked so tired. "I got a good price for it, too. $15,000. That's fair for a car that old." $15,000 for a car Richard spent every single weekend on. For a car he'd restored piece by piece over 20 years. For a car he promised would stay in our family. I just wanted to scream. I wanted to grab my son and shake him until he got what he'd done. But 43 years in the ICU taught me how to keep my voice steady, even when I was falling apart inside. "When did you take it?" "Yesterday afternoon. You were at the store." He still had his key, the one I gave him when he lived here, before he moved out, before he met her. I never asked for it back. And Richard, he always left the garage unlocked, said he wanted to get in there quick if an idea hit him or something. You should have asked me. Would you have said yes? No, I wouldn't have. That's when Melissa walked up. She moved like she owned the whole damn street. She stood right next to Jason and put a hand on his arm. Her nails were bright red and perfect. Margaret, we're not going to discuss this. It's done. The car is sold and we leave for Paris tomorrow. I looked at her. I mean, really looked at her. She's been married to my son for 2 years and I still don't know her at all. Don't know where she grew up, what her parents did. Nothing real about her life before Jason. She smiled all the time, but it never reached her eyes. This is between me and my son. I'm his wife. What's between you and him involves all of us now. Her voice was so calm and reasonable, like she was talking down to a child. Jason needed that money. The car was just sitting there unused. It was the sensible thing to do. It was his father's. His father is dead. She said it so flat, just a matter of fact. And Jason is trying to build a life. We both are. Surely you can understand that. I didn't trust myself to say a word. I just stared at Jason. He wouldn't look at me. Melissa's hand was still on his arm, like she owned him. We'll send you photos from Paris. Melissa said with a smile, you'd love it there. All the architecture, the museums, very romantic. The cruelty in that comment was so casual, like she had no idea what she was saying. Or maybe she did. Jason shifted his feet. We should go. We still need to pack. Yes. Melissa tugged his arm. We have an early flight. They turned and walked back to their BMW. Jason looked back at me one time, just once. He saw me standing in Richard's garage with my arms crossed, still in my slippers. Then he just got in the car. Melissa's window slid down. Take care of yourself, Margaret. See you when we get back. The BMW backed out and drove off. I just watched it go until it turned the corner. And then I was alone. I went back inside the garage, stood right in the middle, right on that old oil stain. The silence felt different now, emptier without the car. The sun was coming through the open door, lighting up all the dust in the air. I picked up Richard's journal again, opened it to the last page he wrote, reading his words about teaching me to drive. Our big road trip, about 20 years of work finally done. His old coffee mug was still sitting on the shelf. It was stained from all those years, the handle worn smooth. I washed it after he passed, but I just couldn't bring myself to put it away. Everything of his was still here. His tools, his workbench, his radio, the smell of him in every corner. And that empty space where the Shelby was supposed to be. I closed the journal, holding it tight against my chest. The sun felt a little warmer. A dog barked down the street. A lawnmower started. Just normal sounds. A normal morning. It's been 8 months since he's been gone. I thought I was all out of tears. But standing there, in that garage holding Richard's journal, looking at that empty spot our son left, I could feel it all coming back. I locked the garage, shut off the light, and walked back to the house. I was still holding on to that journal. The empty spot where the Shelby should have been looked like a big open wound. The phone rang at 7 in the morning. I'd been up since 4. I was at the kitchen table, Richard's journal open in front of me. I'd been reading the same page over and over. The one where he wrote about replacing the carburetor. His handwriting was so neat, his measurements so exact. The phone just kept ringing. An unknown number. I almost let it go. Hello, Mrs. Mitchell. A man's voice, kind of rough, like maybe he'd been crying. This is Mike Patterson from Patterson Classic Auto. I have your husband's car. I sat straight up. What, the Shelby? Your son brought it in on Wednesday. I need you to come down to the shop, please. Right now, if you can. There's something Richard wanted you to know. My mind was racing, trying to understand. I don't understand. Richard was my friend, a good friend. His voice cracked. I was at his funeral. I should have talked to you then, but I just couldn't. I'm so sorry. Please, Mrs. Mitchell, can you come? And then I remembered him. Vaguely. A man standing in the back of the funeral home. Gray hair, dark suit. He left before I got a chance to talk to anyone. Where are you? He gave me the address. The industrial park on the east side of town. I scribbled it on the back of an envelope. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I threw on some jeans and a sweater, grabbed my keys, and drove across town, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight. There wasn't much traffic. I drove past the hospital where I'd worked for 40 years. The parking lot was already getting full. The industrial area was just concrete and big metal buildings. I found Patterson Classic Auto at the end of a long street. The place looked clean, modern. There There were rows of old cars in the front lot behind a chain-link fence. They were all gleaming in the morning sun. A man was standing by the main entrance, gray hair, maybe 65, wearing jeans and a button-down. He was definitely waiting for me. I parked the car and got out. He started walking over. His eyes were all red. "Mrs. Mitchell, thank you for coming." "You're Mike?" "Yes." He held out his hand. I shook it. His grip was strong, but I could feel his hand shaking. "I'm Mike Patterson. Your husband saved my life 25 years ago." I waited. He looked down and took a deep breath. "I needed a business loan. I had a dream of opening this place, but no bank would touch me. My credit was bad, I had no collateral. Just a dream and a whole lot of nerve." He looked up at me. "Richard co-signed the loan for me. He risked his own money and his own credit for a total stranger. I paid him back. Every single penny. But I owed him more than just money. He never told you, did he? He wouldn't have. That was just the kind of man Richard was." Mike wiped his eyes. "This whole dealership is here because of him. I've done well for myself, built a good life. And it's all because your husband believed in me when nobody else would. When your son brought that Shelby in on Wednesday, I knew right away. The second I laid eyes on it." Mike's voice got scratchy. "Richard talked about that car every single time I saw him. At car shows, at auctions. He was always showing me pictures of it on his phone. He'd tell me how it was coming along. He was so proud of that car. Jason told me he sold it." "He did? To me?" Mike looked like he was going to be sick. "Your son had no clue what he was selling. I asked him if he knew what it was worth. He said $15,000 sounded fair." My stomach just dropped. "What's it really worth?" Mike looked me straight in the eye. "Around $180,000. It's a documented 1967 Shelby GT 500. Only 2,048 of them were ever made. Richard restored it perfectly, like it belongs in a museum." The number just didn't make any sense. It couldn't be real. 180,000, yes ma'am. And Jason sold it for 15, yes. I just sat down right there on the curb. Just sat. Mike came and sat down next to me. We just sat there for a minute. Nobody said anything. "I bought it from him," Mike said. "Finally. I paid him the 15,000 because he was desperate. Said something about a trip to Paris with his wife. But Mrs. Mitchell, I was never going to keep that car." "Then why are you telling me all this?" "Because Richard made me promise him something 2 years ago." Mike stood up and held out his hand to help me. "Come inside. There's something I need to show you." He led me through the building and into the garage. The place was huge. White floors, bright lights up above. There were 3 cars in a row, all under covers. Mike stopped at the last one and pulled the cover off, and there was the Shelby gleaming. The burgundy paint was perfect. The chrome was shining. I walked over to it slowly, and I just put my hand on the hood. The metal felt cool and smooth. I could feel Richard in every part of that car. I opened the driver's side door and sat down in the leather seat. It smelled just like our garage at home. The steering wheel was worn down right where his hands always held it. Mike was leaning against the door frame. 2 years ago, Richard asked me to help him install something, a hidden compartment. I looked up at him. "Why?" "He said if anything ever happened to him, he needed me to make sure you found out about it. He made me swear I would." Mike pointed to the dashboard behind the radio. I didn't look inside. He told me, "This is for her and only her." My heart was pounding in my chest. Mike showed me how to open the panel. "You press here, then pull there." The face of the radio came off. Behind it, there was a dark hidden space. Mike stepped back, walked out of the garage, and just left me alone with it. I reached inside the compartment. My hand touched paper. I pulled out a manila folder. It was thick and heavy. Underneath it was a sealed envelope. It had my name on it in Richard's handwriting. And at the bottom, there was a small wooden box with a key inside. I opened the envelope first. Richard's handwriting filled the whole page. It was dated 2 months before he died. "Margaret, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you about this while I was still here. You would have wanted us to face it together, I know that. But I had to protect you from all this until I had proof. I've been looking into Melissa for 18 months. She isn't who she says she is. Her real name's Melissa Crawford. She's pulled this before twice that I've found. This folder has everything I've dug up. Photos, documents, contact info for the other men she conned. Their stories are all the same. She goes after guys with aging parents and family money. She's coming after our house, Margaret. It's her pattern. She'll make Jason believe that you're getting worse, that you need a nurse, that the house has to be sold. Then she'll just vanish with all the cash. I confronted her once, real careful just to see how she'd react. She's a real pro at this. Jason just doesn't see it. He won't believe me without solid proof, and I don't have that yet. The key in this box goes to our safe deposit box at First National. Box 447. Inside are stock certificates I bought back in 1994 as a favor for a patient. See what they're worth. You'll be taken care of financially. Mike knows to call you if anything happens to this car. He's a good guy. Trust him. Protect yourself. Protect our son. He's a victim in this too. I love you. I'm still protecting you, Richard. I read it twice. My hands were trembling. Richard knew. He knew all about Melissa, spent 18 months looking into her, died before he could finish it. I opened the manila folder. Inside there were photos. Melissa at a wedding with another man. Older gray hair. Another photo. Different wedding. Different man. Copies of marriage certificates. Melissa Crawford married a Raymond Foster in Phoenix, Arizona, June of 2019. Then Melissa Crawford married a William Carter in Tampa, Florida, March 2021. Newspaper clippings. One said a local guy's elderly mom had her life savings stolen by his wife. Another one. A family business was sold in a suspected fraud case. There were pages of Richard's handwriting, notes on Melissa's behavior, the questions she'd asked about our house, about my health, our money. He wrote down the dates and times. In the back he had contact information. Phone numbers for Raymond Foster in Phoenix and William Carter in Tampa. Richard's last note was at the bottom. Need more concrete proof before I tell Jason. He won't believe me without it. She's too good. If you're reading this and I'm gone, please finish what I started. Protect our son. I closed the folder, clutching it to my chest. For 8 months, I'd been thinking I knew everything about our life. 8 months I'd been missing him, grieving for him. And he'd been carrying this all alone. That's when the tears came, and they weren't quiet. Deep sobs that just shook my whole body. I sat there in Richard's car, holding his investigation file, and I cried for everything he was trying to do. Mike came back a few minutes later, just stood in the doorway. He didn't say a word, he just waited. I wiped my face, got out of the car, and looked right at him. He was protecting me, even after he was gone. Mike just nodded. That's who Richard was. I need to call these men, Raymond and William. I have to know what happened to them. You can use my office. Take all the time you need. I looked at the Shelby, the car Richard spent 20 years building. I looked at the secret compartment he and Mike put in at the investigation he'd left for me to finish. She's not going to get away with this. No, Mike said. She's not. Raymond Foster answered on the third ring. His voice sounded so tired, like he'd been waiting years for this call. I was in Mike's office with the door closed. The phone was on speaker so Mike could hear. My hands were shaking as I dialed. Hello, Mr. Foster. My name is Margaret Mitchell. I'm calling because my son is married to a woman named Melissa Crawford. It was dead silent for a moment. Then a heavy sigh. He said, I was wondering when this call would come. I grabbed the edge of Mike's desk. Can you tell me what happened? Raymond was 58 years old. He told me his story real slow, choosing every word. It was like he'd practiced what to say if someone ever asked. He met Melissa in the spring of 2019 at a community center where his mom volunteered. Melissa was helping organize events. He said she was charming, attentive, and they just started talking. She seemed like she was really interested in him. His wife had died 3 years before, and he was lonely. They started dating. She was patient, understanding, and made him feel important again. They got married 6 months later. His mother was worried. She said something just felt off, but Raymond blew it off. He thought she was just being overprotective. After the wedding, Melissa started making these little comments. Your mother seems to be slowing down. Have you noticed? She forgot my name yesterday. Is that normal? I'm worried about her driving. What if something happens? Raymond started seeing things he hadn't before. Normal aging all of a sudden looked like a serious decline. Melissa would find articles about dementia and leave them out for Raymond to see, articles about old people falling the risk of injuries. Over a few months, she built this whole case that his mother wasn't safe. Then she found a memory care facility, supposedly the best in the state. She deserves the best, she'd said. It was $20,000 a month. The only way to afford it was to sell his mother's house. So Raymond convinced his mom it was for her own safety. He sold the house she'd lived in for 42 years. It went for $280,000. The money went into a joint account with Melissa. His mom moved into the facility a few months after they got married. 2 weeks later, Melissa disappeared. She cleaned out the bank account. Every single penny, left no forwarding address, changed her phone number. Raymond tried to find her, even filed police reports. But since the money was in a joint account, it was technically legal. His mother died 6 months later. Raymond's voice cracked. She kept asking when she could go home. I kept telling her soon, but there was no home anymore, and no money to get her one. I closed my eyes. I'm so sorry. My mom was fine, Mrs. Mitchell. A little forgetful, but fine. She didn't need that place. She needed her home. He paused. Whatever Melissa is telling your son about, you don't believe a word of it. Document everything. She'll start small with little comments about you forgetting things or being tired. Then she'll escalate. Thank you for telling me. Stop her, Raymond said. Please, don't let her do to another family what she did to mine. I hung up and just sat there staring at the phone. Mike brought me some water. I drank it, then dialed the second number. William Carter answered right away. William Carter. I introduced myself. I used the same opening, and he sighed. Melissa Crawford. Yeah, I've been waiting for someone to call. William was 61. His story was different, but the pattern was the same. He met Melissa at his father's funeral in early 2021. She was there supporting a friend, she said. She found William afterward, told him how sorry she was. She said she understood grief that she'd lost someone. 2. They talked for hours. She helped him through the darkest time of his life. They started dating a month later. His friend said it was too soon. He didn't care. Melissa made the grief bearable. They got married 8 months later. His father had owned a small auto repair shop for 40 years. William inherited it, but didn't want to run it. There were just too many memories. Melissa said they should sell. It's too much stress, she said. Sell it. We'll take the money, travel, and start over. And at the time, it made sense to William. He sold the shop for $195,000. The money went into their joint account. 3 days after the check cleared, Melissa was just gone, vanished. William had to track her using credit card statements. He found out she went to Costa Rica. But by the time he got there, the money was gone. She'd laundered it through a bunch of accounts, and it was impossible to get back. She goes after men with older parents and family money. William said that's her whole thing. She does her homework on them first, so she knows everything before she even says hello. He stopped and asked, "Does your son have access to your house, your money?" "Not yet," I told him, "but she's laying the groundwork." "Then you still have time. Stop her before she gets him to sign a single thing." After I hung up, Mike and I just sat there in silence. "Richard suspected all this," Mike finally said. "He came to me 6 months before he died. He asked me for help, said he had a buddy, a private investigator named David Henderson. They were already working together." "Why didn't Richard tell me?" I asked. "He said he needed solid proof, said Jason was so crazy about her. He'd never believe it otherwise." Mike pulled a business card from his desk. "David's been waiting for your call. Call him." I took the card. It just said David Henderson Private Investigations and a local number. But first I needed to get to the bank, First National. It was on the other side of town. I drove there with Richard's investigation file on the passenger seat. The little wooden box with the key was in my purse. The bank was packed. It was Friday afternoon, people cashing checks, the usual stuff. I asked to get into the safe deposit boxes. The manager, a woman in her 50s, walked me back to the vault to box 447. The key fit perfectly. Inside there was just one envelope. I opened it. It was stock certificates in a plastic sleeve. And some other papers. A letter from Richard. "Margaret," it started. "I bought this stock as a favor to a patient back in '94. His son was starting a tech company and needed investors. I gave him $5,000. I never expected anything from it. The patient died the next year, and I honestly just forgot about these certificates. I found them last month organizing some files. I looked up the company and I nearly fell out of my chair. This is worth more than we ever saved. This is for you, for our future, to make sure you're secure. If you're reading this from the box, it means something happened to me. Sell these when you feel you're ready. Live a good life. Travel. Stay independent. Don't let anyone talk you out of it. You're taken care of, Den." I took the certificates over to the bank manager. "Can you tell me what these are worth?" She looked it up on her computer. Her eyes went wide. "Mrs. Mitchell TechCore Solutions went public last year. These shares are currently worth about $342,000. I had to sit down. I just sat. The manager brought me a glass of water. "Are you all right?" "My husband bought these," I said. She pulled up the records. Purchased May 94 for $5,000. The company was private for 30 years. Then it went public. The stock price has just been climbing. $342,000. Richard had left me with a safety net I never even knew I had. I had money now. I had power. And I had options. I could fight Melissa on a level playing field. Saturday morning. I met David Henderson at a coffee shop near the hospital. Mike had called him to set it up. David was 55, graying, and looked like he meant business. A former detective. He had a stack of folders with him. He sat across from me and said, "Richard was my friend. When I heard he died, I wondered if Melissa would finally make her move. You kept digging. Richard made me promise not to call you directly unless Melissa started something. He didn't want to scare you over something that wasn't proven yet." David opened his folder, but I couldn't take my eyes off him. He showed me printouts her online tracks from the last 3 months. Melissa was all over caregiver forums using a fake name. She was posting, asking how to convince stubborn old people that they need help, asking about assisted living places, memory care costs, and even looking at property in Costa Rica. Then he showed me this money trail, credit cards in Jason's name, 3 of them, $32,000 in total debt. And the charges were for designer clothes, fancy restaurants, a luxury hotel in Paris. Jason's salary as an office manager is $65,000 a year. David said, "That's not nearly enough to live like this. She's living on borrowed money. Money Jason doesn't even know he owes yet." David laid out her whole game plan based on what she did to other victims. Phase 1, the Paris trip. Build the dream. Make Jason feel like he's not good enough. Phase 2, in the next 2 or 3 months, she'll start acting concerned about you, suggesting you're slipping. Phase 3, 4 to 6 months from now, she'll build the case to put you in a home. Phase 4, 6 to 8 months, she'll convince Jason to sell your house. My house is paid off. It's worth $320,000, exactly. Her total score would be over $350,000. David closed the folder. She's in the setup phase now. When they get back from Paris, she'll really get to work. Can the police stop her? I asked. Not yet. She hasn't actually committed a crime in this state. The other scams were in Arizona and Florida. Until she actually takes money or commits fraud here, the cops can't do anything. So we just wait for her to hurt us. We build our case now, write everything down. When she makes her move, we'll be ready. David leaned in, and Jason has to see the truth for himself. If you just tell him, she'll convince him you're just being paranoid. He has to find out on his own. I understood. Jason wouldn't believe me without proof he found himself. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table and made a list of every weird thing I'd noticed about Melissa over the last 2 years. 2 months ago, Jason asking where I keep the deed to the house. 6 weeks ago, Melissa taking pictures of every single room when she visited. 1 month ago, Jason asking if I'd forgotten about lunch plans we never even made. 3 weeks ago, Melissa saying how tired I looked. 2 weeks ago, a brochure for Sunset Hills Senior Living fell right out of Melissa's purse. The pattern was all there. It had been building for months. Melissa was creating a story that I was losing it, getting Jason ready to believe his own mother needed to be put away. I thought about the stock certificates, about why Richard kept them in the bank but hid the investigation file in the car. The answer was obvious. The bank was fireproof secure, the safest place for something valuable. But the car was Richard's private space. Melissa never went into the garage. She never showed any interest in his tools or his projects. She always stayed in the house. The car was where Richard could hide something he didn't want her to find. He thought of everything. I closed my notebook. Outside, the sun was going down. It was a spring evening, warm and quiet. Richard had protected me in every way he could. He left me money, he left me evidence. He left me people who would help me. Now I had to protect Jason. They got back from Paris on a Tuesday. Both of them were tan. Jason looked tired even after their vacation. I saw new stress lines around his eyes. I'd asked them over for dinner. I played the part of the perfect host. I made pot roast Richard's favorite. Jason loved it as a kid too. They showed up at 6. Melissa was wearing clothes I'd never seen, a silk blouse, designer jeans, some expensive bag. I hugged Jason at the door. He held on for a second longer than usual. Melissa's hug was quick, like she was putting on a show. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one I raised Jason at. The chairs Richard refinished 20 years ago. Melissa ran the conversation from the very first minute. Paris was beautiful. Their hotel in the Marais was stunning. They ate lunch near the Louvre and dinner at some restaurant I couldn't even pronounce. She was painting this picture of the life they deserved, the life they were supposed to have. It was wonderful, Melissa said, but it made me realize how much we're missing out on. Jason works so hard and we have so little to show for it. She looked right at me when she said it. The message was clear. I kept my face blank and passed the potatoes. Jason jumped in. Mom, you should think about traveling too, go see things. Maybe someday. Melissa leaned forward. Margaret, this house is really too big for one person. Have you thought about downsizing? Maybe something more manageable. There it was, her first real move. I'm managing just fine. This is my home. Melissa's smile was so sweet and reasonable. We just care about your safety, the stairs, the yard work. It's a lot for someone your age. Jason just nodded along. We worry about you here alone, Mom. I noticed it. He said, we and not I. Those were Melissa's words coming out of his mouth. I appreciate the concern, but I'm fine. Melissa let it go. But I saw her doing the math in her head. The seed was planted. She'd just push harder next time. After dinner, we went to the living room for coffee and the apple pie I'd made. Melissa excused herself to use the bathroom. She was gone for 10 minutes. I waited 5, then excused myself. I found her upstairs near Richard's old office. The bathroom door was open and it was empty behind her. She jumped when she saw me. Oh, I got turned around. This house has so many rooms. I said, the bathroom is downstairs, where it's always been. She laughed and touched my arm. Of course, silly me. Too much wine with dinner. I led her back downstairs and didn't say another word. They left an hour later. Melissa was all smiles. Take care of yourself, Margaret. We'll visit again soon. Jason hugged me. Goodbye. Love you, Mom. I watched them drive off. Then I went straight into my notebook and wrote down every single detail while it was fresh. Wednesday morning, I called Jason. I need to talk to you about something. Can you come by, just you? What's it about your father? Something I found in his things. Silence on the other end. Melissa and I don't keep secrets, Mom. This is between you and me, please. Jason. A long pause. Okay, this afternoon, but I have to tell Melissa where I'm going. That's fine. He got here at 3 alone, just like he'd promised, but he looked nervous getting out of his car. I had coffee ready. Richard's old investigation file was on the kitchen table. Jason saw it and he immediately tensed up. Mom, if this is about the car again, sit down, please. He sat his arms crossed, already defensive before I even started. I took a breath and used my old ICU nurse voice, calm, in charge, and factual. Before I show you anything, I need you to listen. Really listen. Can you do that? This feels like an ambush. It's to protect him. I handed him Richard's letter, first put it right in his hands. Jason read it, and his face just went pale. Dad was looking into Melissa for 18 months before he died. Jason's reaction was instant. He got angry, started denying everything, said Dad never liked her, that he was paranoid. He just said, this is ridiculous. I kept my cool. Look at the evidence, I said. I spread the pictures out on the table. There was Melissa at 2 different weddings with 2 different guys, the marriage licenses. Melissa Crawford married to Raymond Foster. Melissa Crawford married to William Carter. Jason just stared at them. This could be anyone, someone with the same name. I told him, call them, ask them about their wives. I handed him the paper with the phone numbers, written in Richard's neat handwriting. Raymond Foster, Phoenix. William Carter, Tampa. You want me to call some random strangers? No, they're not random. They were married to your wife before you. Jason jumped up and started pacing. This is insane. Melissa wouldn't do this. She loves me. I told him, then prove me wrong. Call them. Prove your father was wrong. He grabbed the paper, wadded it up in his fist. I'm not doing this. He went for the door. Jason, please. He turned back. Why are you doing this? Can't you just let me be happy? My voice cracked. Because your father died trying to protect you, and I'm not going to let his last months be for nothing. Jason slammed the door on his way out. I watched him drive off. I didn't know if he was going to call those numbers or go straight to Melissa. Either way, it was up to him now. The waiting was the hardest part. I just sat at the kitchen table. I couldn't eat. Couldn't think about anything else. David called at 8 to check on me. How did it go? He's angry. I don't know what he's going to do. Give him time, David said. The truth needs to sink in. But it felt like time was running out. At midnight, my phone rang. Jason's name popped up. Jason! His voice was a wreck, just raw. I called them Mom. I called them both. He was crying. What did they say? Everything? Raymond's mom? William's dad's shop? It's the same. It's exactly the same story. My heart just broke for him. Oh, Jason, I'm so sorry. I went home after I left your house. I was so angry. His voice was shaking. But I kept thinking about Dad about those marriage certificates. So I decided I'd test her, just ask a few simple questions. What happened? I asked where she grew up, what her maiden name was. Tell me about your family. He took a shaky breath. Her answers were different, not just a little different. They were completely different from the things she'd told me before. Different town, different college, different everything. What did you do? I pushed her. I asked about the credit cards David found, the ones in my name I didn't even know about. Jason's voice went completely flat. Her whole face changed. Ace? Mom. It was like a mask came off. She said they were for business investments that I wouldn't understand. So I asked what business. I asked her to show me. She said she didn't have to prove a thing to me, that I should trust my wife. I just kept pushing. I told her I wanted to see the statements. They're in my name, after all. She packed a bag right then and there. No more pretending. She said I was weak, that Dad was right about me, that I was just like all of them. His voice broke. She walked out, just got in her car and left. I've been calling her phone over and over. She won't answer. I told him, stay right there. I'm calling David Henderson. I hung up and dialed David right away. He picked up on the first ring. I'm already tracking her with the credit cards. She checked into the airport Marriott an hour ago. She's skipping town. She's made several cash withdrawals in the last 2 hours. We got about 12,000 total, and she just booked a flight. He paused. A one-way to Mexico City leaving at 6 a.m.? My stomach just dropped. She's running. Yeah, but I found something else. Melissa Crawford is a stolen identity. The real Melissa Crawford died in a car crash back in 2018. This woman's real name is Karen Wells. She's wanted for fraud in 2 other states under different aliases. Can the cops stop her? I've already been in touch with detectives in Arizona and Florida. They're going to issue a warrant. If we move now, we can get her at the airport before she boards. What do you need, Jason's cooperation? His statement about the credit card fraud. You think he'll do it? Yeah, I'll make sure of it. At 3 in the morning, we all met at my house. David, Jason, and me. Jason looked like a wreck, red eyes, he hadn't slept. He just sat at the kitchen table while David laid everything out. Melissa's leaving on a 6 a.m. flight. The police are ready to arrest her. On outstanding warrants, but they need your statement about the forged credit cards. This is going to be public, David said. You'll have to testify. Are you ready for that? Jason just looked at me. What would Dad do? Your father spent his last months building a case against her. He died before he could finish it. He'd want you to stop her. Not for revenge, but so she can't do this to anyone else. Jason was quiet for a long moment. Then he just nodded. Call the police. Let's go to the airport. We got in David's car and drove through the empty streets. 4 in the morning, and the city was dark except for the streetlights. Jason sat in the back seat just staring at nothing. I reached back and took his hand. He held on tight. The airport was just starting to wake up when we arrived. Coffee shops were opening, the fluorescent lights overhead were harsh. Business travelers pulled their luggage looking tired. We stood behind a pillar near security. David placed us where we could see but stay out of sight. The cops were already there. 2 detectives in plain clothes near the checkpoint. Jason hadn't said a word since we got in the car, just stared ahead. I stayed right by his side. 5:30, the security line started, filling up. And then she showed up. 2 big suitcases, a designer coat, sunglasses on even though it was still dark. Her hair was perfect. She looked like someone just going on vacation. Calm, confident, phone in one hand, her boarding pass in the other. She got into the security line, pulling her luggage forward. That's when the detectives moved in. Ma'am, we need to speak with you. Melissa turned, and for a split second she saw them. Her whole expression changed. Then she smiled. Is there a problem, officers? The detective showed his badge. We have a warrant for your arrest. Karen Wells. Melissa's smile froze. I don't know who that is. My name is Melissa Mitchell. Ma'am, please step aside. Melissa looked around. You could see her calculating. She saw the other detective blocking the exit. She just ran, dropped her bags, kicked off her heels, and started sprinting in her stockings across the polished floor. Airport security caught her before she made it 20 feet, tackled her right at the departure board. She fought, kicking and screaming, "Get off me! I haven't done anything!" People stopped to watch, pulling out their phones. The police handcuffed her right there on the floor. They read her rights while she was thrashing around. A detective opened up the luggage she'd dropped. Right there at the security checkpoint. The first suitcase just had clothes, toiletries, normal travel stuff. But inside, the second one were stacks of cash wrapped in rubber bands. $48,000, the detective would tell us later. A passport with her face but a different name. Karen Mitchell, plus documents, bank account numbers, and an external hard drive. The detective held up the passport. "You want to explain this?" Melissa just spat at him. They hauled her to her feet. She was still fighting until she saw us, saw Jason standing about 30 feet away, me right beside him. She just froze. Then her face twisted. Pure rage. "You!" She lunged right at him. The cops held her back. "You did this." Jason flinched. "You're pathetic," Melissa screamed. "Weak, stupid, just like all the others. Did you really think someone like me would ever want you? You're nothing. A nobody." I stepped in front of Jason, just a little, but it was enough. Melissa turned on me. "And you meddling old woman, this was all mine, my big score. I spent 3 years on this. You should have just stayed out of it and died already." Her voice echoed all through the terminal. People were staring, recording on their phones. I didn't even flinch, just stood there. Kept my hand on Jason's arm. The police dragged Melissa away. She was still screaming threats, her voice getting fainter as they took her through the security doors. Then she was gone. Jason just stood there, frozen and shaking. "Let's go home," I said, 2 weeks later. We were at the police station giving our statements. Detective Ramirez told us what they'd found out. Melissa's real name was Karen Wells. Born in Ohio, started running cons when she was 20. Small-time stuff at first, then she moved up to identity theft and scamming old folks. Melissa Crawford was a stolen identity. The real Melissa Crawford died in a car crash. Karen just stole her identity and used it for the last 6 years. They'd found 5 other victims so far, 2 of them before Raymond, so the pattern went back 8 years. She was being charged in 3 states, Arizona, Florida, and right here, for identity theft, fraud, theft by deception, and forgery. The prosecutor figured she'd take a plea deal, 12 to 15 years in federal prison. Raymond Foster and William Carter's cases were reopened with the new evidence. They might get some of their money back by suing her. And Jason's credit card debt was pretty much wiped out. The fraud claims were all approved. 1 month later, Jason showed up at my door with 2 suitcases. "Can I stay here for a little while?" Of course. He took his old room, the same one from high school. His posters were still on the walls, football trophies on the shelf. The divorce went through. Actually, it was an annulment. The marriage was never legal to begin with. Melissa had married him using a stolen identity. Jason started therapy, twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday nights. Some days he was okay. He'd make breakfast, help around the house, and even smile once in a while. Other days, he'd barely talk. Just stay in his room and only come out for meals. I didn't push him. I just kept the house safe for him, made his favorite foods, left lights on, and kept coffee ready. My years as a nurse taught me that healing isn't a straight line. It's messy. It takes time. 2 months after the airport, the prosecutor called. Melissa took the plea deal. 12 years in federal prison, I told Jason over dinner. He just nodded. Didn't say a word. That Saturday, I found him in the garage. He was sitting on Richard's old work stool, holding the work journal with tears running down his face. I stood in the doorway and waited. "I found this on the workbench." His voice was choked up. He started to read. He opened it to a page from years ago. It was full of Richard's handwriting. "Taught Jason to change the oil today. He's 12, old enough to learn. His hands are still small, but he's careful. He listened to every single word. So proud of him." Jason's hands were shaking, holding the page. Another entry from later. "Jason came by to help with about the engine rebuild. We worked all afternoon and barely said a word. We didn't need to. These are the days I'll never forget. I can barely remember this," Jason said. "Working on the car with him. I was so young. I just sat on the workbench right beside him. He loved those days, talked about them all the time. I sold his car." Jason's voice cracked. "The car he spent 20 years on. Well, for $15,000 for a trip to impress a woman who was planning to ruin our family." "You didn't know. I should have known. Dad tried to warn me. Those last few months he kept asking about Melissa, about our plans, about money. I just thought he was being controlling." He wiped his eyes. "The last conversation I had with him, we fought. We argued about her. I told him to back off to let me live my life. He died a week later. I never said I was sorry." My throat got tight. "He knew you loved him." Jason just shook his head. "How could he? I chose her over him, over you, over everything he taught me." I pulled out the letter Richard had left in the car, the one about needing proof before he told Jason. I'd been carrying it with me, just waiting for the right moment. "Read this." Jason took it and started reading Richard's words, about how he didn't want to break his heart without solid proof, about how much he loved him, about how Jason was a victim too. "He understood," I said. "He knew Melissa was good at her game. He didn't blame you." That's when Jason completely broke down. Deep sobs just shook his whole body. I held him. After all those years of being a mother holding my son through every single pain, this one cut the deepest. We sat in that garage for a long time with Richard's tools, his workbench, and his radio all around us. You could smell the motor oil and old leather. Finally, Jason's tears stopped. He wiped his face with his sleeve. I wish the car was still here. His voice was raw. I'd learn everything about it the way Dad wanted me to. I didn't say anything, I just squeezed his shoulder. He closed the journal carefully and put it back on the workbench, right where Richard had left it. We walked back to the house as the evening was coming on. Spring was turning into summer. The air was warm and thick. Inside, I started making dinner. Jason set the table without being asked. The house felt different. It wasn't empty anymore. Not quite whole, but we were slowly healing. The week after Melissa was sentenced, I paid off Jason's remaining debt. $5,000. It was what the fraud claims didn't cover. I wrote the check and didn't mention it again. The stock certificates from Richard gave me choices I never expected. $342,000. It was more money than we'd saved in our entire marriage. I thought about what to do with it. I thought of Raymond Foster, his mother, dying with a broken heart in a memory care place she never should have been in. William Carter, his dad's shop sold. 40 years of work, just gone. I sent them each a check for $10,000. I put a note in for your mother's memory from someone who understands. I signed it Margaret Mitchell for Raymond. I wrote something like that for William, too. For myself, I decided to stay in the house. Maybe travel a little, small trips, nothing fancy. Just stay independent like Richard wanted. 2 months after the airport, on a Saturday morning, I heard an engine rumble outside. It was deep, powerful, and familiar. I looked out the kitchen window. The Shelby was sitting in my driveway. The burgundy paint was gleaming in the sun. Mike Patterson was behind the wheel. My chest got so tight. Jason was upstairs. I heard his door open, then his footsteps on the stairs. He'd heard it too. We both walked to the door. We were standing outside on the front porch. Mike got out and he smiled when he saw us. He was bringing her home, right where she belongs. Jason just stared at the car. He couldn't move. He couldn't even speak. Mike walked over to us and held out the keys. To me. This was never mine, Mrs. Mitchell. Richard built it for you. I was trying to find the words. Mike, you paid Jason $15,000. I know. Mike shook his head. But this car is worth more than money. Richard would want you to have it. He'd want Jason to learn from it. That's what matters. Jason's voice sounded rough. I sold it. I threw it away. Mike just looked at him. You were a victim too. Your dad knew that. That's why he built the case to protect you. Mike handed me the keys. Richard told me once that this car was never really his. It was always meant for his family, for the people he loved. He motioned to the garage. You want help backing her in? We opened the garage door together. Mike backed the Shelby right into its spot. The same spot it had left months ago. That oil stain was still on the concrete. He shut off the engine. It got real quiet. Then the garage smelled like it was supposed to again. Motor oil, old leather, Richard. Mike got out and stood there looking at the car for a second. He'd be proud of what you did, he said to me. Stopping her, protecting your son. He looked over at Jason. And he'd be proud you came back, that you're healing. Mike left after coffee and hugged us both. Jason and I stood in the garage. As after he drove away, the Shelby sat there between us. I can't believe it's back, Jason said. Neither can I. He touched the hood, running his hand over the smooth paint. I don't deserve this. Richard thought you did. That's enough. 3 months. Later on a Sunday morning, we started. Jason brought Richard's work journal to the garage. I brought coffee. We opened up the hood. We just stood there looking at the engine Richard had rebuilt piece by piece. I don't know where to start, Jason said. I opened the journal and found the page marked Teaching Jason. Richard's handwriting was so clear and careful. Start with the oil, I read. Check it first every time. Before you drive her, know she's ready. Jason found the dipstick. Pulled it and checked the level just like the journal showed. His hands were steadier now. 3 months of therapy was showing. We spent the morning going through the car together, checking fluids, looking at filters, testing all the systems. It was physical work, methodical. We followed Richard's notes step by step. Jason's confidence grew as the hours went by. I saw Richard in his movements, the careful way he paid attention, the gentle touch he had with the tools. By the afternoon, Jason was smiling, a real smile. I forgot how much I loved this, he said, being in the garage working with my hands. Your father loved these. Buffo, jabos, with you. I remember more now, little things. The way he'd explain everything twice to make sure I understood, the way he'd let me try even when I messed up. He closed the hood carefully. I'm going to take care of this car the way he wanted. We'll take care of it, I said. 4 months after Mike brought the car back. I decided it was time. It was a Saturday morning, spring turning into summer. I stood in the garage with the keys in my hand. Jason came out. You ready? I think so. We got in. Jason in the passenger seat, me behind the wheel. The leather seat was cool. The steering wheel was worn down, where Richard's hands had gripped it for 20 years. I adjusted the mirrors. I checked, and everything just like the journal taught us. I started the engine. The Shelby roared to life, a deep rumble I could feel in my chest. I felt it in my chest, all of Richard's work, his patience, his love. I backed out of the garage real slow. Jason's hand was on the door handle. Nervous, but he trusted me. We drove down Oakwood Drive with the windows down, warm air blowing in, that engine purring so smooth and powerful. Jason just laughed. Dad would be losing his mind right now in the best way. He taught me to drive when I was 17 on an old stick-shift Ford. I stalled it 6 times. He never once got frustrated. This is so much easier. We just drove with no place to go. Through town, past this hospital I used to work at, past the high school where Jason played football. We were just driving. The Shelby handled like a dream. 20 years of restoration paying off in every single turn, every shift, every mile. After about an hour, I headed for home. I pulled in the driveway and backed the car right into the garage. A perfect fit, like it never even left. I turned off the engine and just sat in the quiet. Dad would be so proud of you, Jason said. Of us, I corrected him. That evening I made dinner. Jason came down and helped with the vegetables, and he was chopping them just the way Richard always did. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel empty. The garage was full again, Richard's tools hung up on their pegboard, his journal on the workbench, and the Shelby right in its spot. I looked out at the garage thinking about Richard's letter. I'm still protecting you. And he was. The whole investigation, he'd set up the breadcrumbs he left Mike, keeping his promise. Richard loved me enough to get ready for anything. I wasn't alone. I never was, and I never would be. So that's my story. I'd really love to hear what you think. Could you ever forgive your kid for selling something that meant so much? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.